You know your writer friends love books, right? So you might be thinking, well, what book can I buy my writer friend for the holidays or for birthdays or any other gift giving time? Well, I'm going to share some writing books that were important to me that made an impact in my writing career, and you might want to buy some of those books for your writing friends.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author, and I'm here on Fridays to give you some writing tips to help you with your writing projects. But today, we're going to talk just about books and what are some great books to buy your friends that are writers, or to buy yourself, because, we can buy our own gifts as well, right? So I'm going to start with the first one. So the first one is actually an old book that it's the first book that I actually read about writing, and it's called Becoming a Writer. So when I was a young 19-year-old and I wanted to become a writer, I thought, well, that's a great title. And I picked that book up and find out about becoming a writer. And it's by Dorothea Brand. So it was written, gosh, I think it was in 1934. Okay. So long time ago. But the reason why this book is still actually relevant, years and years later, is because this book is not so much about writing. It's called Becoming a Writer because it is exactly that. It's about not a how to write book, but how to actually create a mindset of being a writer, which is why I think I loved that book so much because it helped me to, as a young teenager, really just starting out and thinking about writing, it helped me to think about how writers think. So the book covers things like what do writers do? How do writers come up with ideas? How do writers plan their day? How do they write? All kinds of things like that. So it was more of like just what is it like to be a writer? And it was very inspiring to me. So if you have a friend who's just thinking of writing and hasn't written yet or wants to become a writer, then this is a really cool book to buy because she tells you how to believe in yourself and how to start behaving like a writer. And I think that's important for somebody who's just starting out and doesn't really believe that they are a writer because they haven't published anything yet, or maybe they haven't even written anything yet, or anything substantial. So this allows them to start actually believing that they can be a writer. So great book to start with. Okay, the next book that I recommend is The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. Now, the first time that I met Christopher Vogler was at the Maui Writers Conference, and this was a long time ago. I wasn't yet published. I wasn't yet a mom, didn't have kids, so I could spend money on expensive conferences like the Maui Writers Conference, and it was super expensive. But I thought, well, what better place to be creative and get inspired than, in one of the Hawaiian Islands. So we went with my husband to the Maui Writers Conference. It was an amazing conference. There were just so many people there that had accomplished so much. Chris Vogler was one of them. And again, there were just so many. I won't even go into the whole list of people. But the point is that he was there. He spoke about the mythic structure of stories, and that the reason he created the writer's journey was because he had been influenced by Joseph Campbell, who wrote the hero's journey. And so what Vogler said is that all story really is about the hero's transformation, right? From someone who can't accomplish their goal, whatever that might be, to the guy who can accomplish the goal at the end of the story. So it is that's the story, right? It's really this transformation. It doesn't matter what else is happening, but it is what creates the hero and why we cheer for our characters in our books. And so I had heard about Christopher. I actually already owned his book, but I really understood it after going to the workshop, and I really got into it and actually started using some of the techniques in my own writing. So it was super helpful, and the book really is it's a classic, right? It really is. It shows you how to plot and how to create a story and how to take your characters from that beginning stage where they're just starting out and they haven't accomplished their goal, or they feel like a failure, whatever it is, to the hero at the end of the story. So definitely a book that I would add to any writer's library. Okay, the next one that I'm going to recommend isn't actually, I don't think it's actually available in book format, but you can get it as an audio. And it's just that good that I have to recommend it. And it's called The Hero's Two Journeys, right? So with the writer's journey, what Vogler does is he really takes you through the hero's outer journey. What are the things that have to happen in the story at certain points within the story? So for example, I have the list here, right? So he starts off in the ordinary world. He gets the call to adventure. He refuses the call. He meets a mentor. He crosses the first threshold, getting him into this new world that he's going to go into. He has tests, meets up with allies and enemies. He approaches the innermost cave where things look like they're going to fall apart and the hero is not going to actually reach his goal, to the supreme ordeal, which is this is usually a very important point in the story where the hero has to make a choice. And if he makes the wrong choice, he probably is not going to reach his goal. He's not going to transform into the hero that he can be. If he does, and hopefully he does, because this is why we're reading the story, typically, unless we're reading a tragedy. But if he does, then he gets a reward, right? He gets some kind of reward, and then he gets, then there's the road back, the resurrection, where he actually does, actually becomes this new person, this new hero, and then finally he returns home as this hero. It's called Return with the Elixir. So Vogler focuses on these turning points and these parts of the plot. What Michael Haig, who is the other author, who together with Vogler created the Hero's Two Journeys, Michael Haig focuses on the inner journey of the hero. And to me, this was what really completed the idea of the hero's journey, because I write women's fiction, right? A lot of the stuff that happens in romance and women's fiction, for example, and in a lot of fiction, is internal. So the hero really needs to change internally if he's going to be able to actually reach his goal. So it's not just going through these outer turning points, these outer parts of his life and experiencing things, but it's what's going on inside and how the person changes on the inside. So Haig really does a great job of showing the importance of that inner journey for the character. So, for example, what he says is that as the character begins his journey, he is wearing a mask. So he's not really his true self, right? So he has this mask that he portrays to the world, that he portrays even to himself. So he may not even know that he is wearing this mask. But as the story progresses and as he goes through the regular hero's journey, only by getting rid of the mask, right? Only by actually becoming the true essence of who he really is, can he even achieve that goal that he has in that outer world. So it's really good. I can't even do it justice by explaining it. It's definitely worth purchasing the audio, and either for yourself or again for a writer friend of yours who may appreciate seeing both the outer and the inner journey the way Vogler and Michael Haig explain it. The next book on the list is Deborah Dixon's Goal, Motivation, and Conflict. So back in the 1990s, when I was beginning my writing career, all the cool writers were talking about this book. And so I purchased it to see what it was all about, because it did sound good. Goal, Motivation, and Conflict is exactly what it sounds like, right? So what every story should have is a goal, a story goal, and a character goal. Motivation, so the character has to have a motivation to do whatever it is that he's doing. And of course, a lot of conflict. So the goal is the desire, the needs, the ambitions that the character has. The motivation is typically what causes him to want that. So what the backstory or whatever incentive he might have to achieve that goal is part of that motivation. And of course, conflict is conflict. So anything that's going to keep that character from getting what he wants is great because it creates conflict and then it creates a great story. So this book I do recommend because it shows how to do that so that the reader will not want to put the book down and will be hooked in from beginning to end. And one of the things that I really liked about this book is that she has lots of examples. So sometimes just, the generic do this, have a goal, have this doesn't really show us how to do it. But if we can see examples from books and movies, then we can see exactly what she's talking about. So I do like that. And she also talks about having, the GMC for both internal and external, which again, I think is very important, especially for anybody who's writing character-driven stories. So any kind of romance, any kind of women's fiction, or any kind of story that is really character driven, you really want to have that strong internal component. Okay, the next book that I suggest, especially for anybody who struggles with describing emotions, is a book called Creating Character Emotions by Anne Hood. And the reason that I really liked this book was because each chapter or each section of the book, I guess it was each chapter, had a different emotion. So it might have anger or jealousy or, any other type of emotion in it, and gives examples of stories that have used that emotion and how they did it and why it was good, and also how to do it so that it's not your typical, how to show that emotion rather than just saying, for example, somebody was angry. And she gives an example of, let's see, what was it, of the emotion of hate, and she uses a story, an excerpt from Jill McCorkle's Tending to Virginia. I haven't read the book, but she gives an example of a little part of that book where the character is unhappy. She's pregnant, she's unhappy, and she is fixing up her baby, her baby's room. And it's yellow because people have said use yellow because it's a color that is good for both boys and girls. And the scene is showing how she really hates that color. She just hates the color yellow. Well, she doesn't really hate the color yellow, right? It's to show how unhappy she is about her situation, about being pregnant. And she has the line, I guess, from the book that says, and she hates yellow. She wishes there was absolutely nothing yellow in the entire world. Yellow is perfect for a nursery because it can go either way, boy or girl. Yellow, the tennis guy's wife had said, screw her, impregnate her, paint her life yellow. So, right, it shows that the anger, it shows how she just really hates where she is in her life at this point. So again, I have not read that book, but it's a really great example that she's using to show how to express emotion without saying, this is what hatred is what anger is. So really good book for that, right? To learn how to write emotion well. Another book that I recommend is one called Fiction is Folks. And this is by Robert Newton Peck. What I really like about this book is that it has, it talks about how to create real people, right? So you don't want to create these characters that seem like characters, right? That seem fake. So he talks about how to create real people, how to look for characteristics that real people have, and to add those to your people. So the reason I bought this book, I actually ended up buying it on eBay because somebody had recommended it and said how great it was, like the greatest book on characters and characterization. So I found it on eBay, probably way overpaid for it, and because I just wanted to read it because I have to own almost every single writing book that ever existed and exists. And so anyways, I don't know if I would call it the greatest book ever, but it was really a good book on characterization and creating, again, real people rather than doing these like over the top characters that almost feel like they're, superheroes or something. You don't want that. You want like the real person who experiences something in life that turns that person into maybe more of what that person actually is, but it's really still, excuse me, it really is that person still. So definitely good practical advice that I recommend. So I recommend that book for that reason. The next one is Scene and Sequel by Jack Bickman, and this is definitely is one of my favorite books. It really helped me to write better scenes. Because what he says is that books should have scenes and sequels. And so a scene is where a lot of the action is happening, right? There's a bank robbery, there's a car chase, there's something that's happening in the scenes. There's a lot of action in the scene, but that should be followed by a sequel. So the sequel is where the character thinks about what just happened, develops a new plan. So because of what just happened. So if you just had scene after scene after scene after scene with a bunch of action, and you never really had time for the character to have that internal dialogue or that internal monologue where the character is thinking, oh my God, I almost got killed in that car crash. I really need to change this. I really need to focus on what I'm doing. I can't be, my mind can't be distracted by whatever else that's happening in their life, right? And they develop a new plan, usually during these sequel parts, or something happened, they got caught, they were in a bank robbery, something happened, now they're being arrested. What is the next plan? What are they going to do next? And so this is where this happens, right? This is where we hear, and we see what the character is thinking and what their new plan is going to be. So we have to have that scene and sequel back and forth because it helps. First, it helps the pacing because it helps slow down the story a little bit, but it also helps us to actually understand the character and why he's doing certain things. Okay, so definitely a great book. Again, one of my favorites. The next one is Superstructure by James Scott Bell. And Superstructure is a great book because it is another plotting book. So I love the writer's journey. That's what I started with, and that's how I wrote my stories. And it feels like to me, because I read the other one first, right, that there's been a lot of books that sort of rewrite the same idea. So, but it's good because I think, new writer, every different writer, right, will look at plotting differently. I think that a lot of it seems the same because plotting is the same. Like we have to have the character go through certain plot points in the story. We have to have the character go on a journey. And so Superstructure shows us a lot of the similar things that the writer's journey does, but has different names and for different plot points, and adds a few extra things that I think the writer's journey does not have. And one of my favorites that Scott has that is not in the writer's journey is that he says that there comes a point in a character's journey that he calls the mirror moment, where the character is either literally looking into a mirror and seeing himself as a new person or as the person that he is, and has to make a decision, right? At this, as in this mirror moment where he's seeing himself, truly seeing himself, he has to make a decision on if he wants to continue being that person or if he's ready to make a change and do something different. It doesn't actually have to be a mirror. A lot of times it is, but it can be another way that this character, maybe the reflection in somebody else, maybe the character sees himself in his child and realizes, I can't continue to be this kind of person. I have to change because I'm influencing my child in this way and I don't like it, right? So I like this, that there is this moment where the character decides to change. Now, it is similar to in the writer's journey where he reaches the dark moment, right? But again, this is just a different look, a different way of viewing this. And I think the reason that I love reading so many different types of books on plotting, on characterization, on whatever, is because sometimes the way a writer explains something just clicks more, right? It just makes a little bit more sense, or something you've heard a million times. Now it's like, oh, okay, now I see why I should do it a certain way, or why this is an important plot point. So I do like this book a lot. Actually, it's short, it's easy to read, and if somebody has not read it, it's definitely a great book to buy a writer. Okay, another one, the number nine. We're number nine now. It's Take Your Pants Off, Outline Your Book for Faster, Better Writing by Libby Hawker. This is another plotting book. Again, the more you read, the more you're going to understand plotting. But I like this one because she's writing this book for non-plotters, right? For so people who do not like to outline. And what she's saying is whether you outline or not, whether you're right from the seat of your pants, you can still have a little bit of structure and make your book better and stronger. And what she does is instead of having all these various plot points, she says that all you need is three. So if you picture a table with three legs, one of them is character arc. Okay, so the character arc, the journey that your character is going to take. The next one is pacing. So understanding pacing is going to make that table nice and stable. And the other one is having a theme. So if you have a strong theme for your story, it's going to help guide you because you know that whatever you are writing, if you are being true to that theme, then you're going to, it belongs in the story. If you're not being true to that theme, then it doesn't belong in your story. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a huge outline with all the scenes and all the plot points that are going to happen. As long as you understand as you're writing, like your character, if it's a story about the theme of revenge, and all of a sudden you're talking about the two characters, sisters that are dealing with issues from their childhood that has nothing to do with the main theme, then you know you're really kind of in the wrong place, right? You're going in the wrong direction. If you're not developing that character arc, you know you're in the wrong, you know that you're off. You're not in the right place with your story. So she allows for a lot more flexibility in plotting as long as you are being true to these three things. So it's kind of an interesting book. It's only about 160 pages, so it's nice and short, but it helps you to look at story plotting and storytelling in a different way, which again makes it a really great book. Okay, the next one's going to sound like a really boring book, and it's really not, and I wouldn't read it from cover to cover anyways. It's called The Art of Styling Sentences by Marie L. Waddle maybe, Robert M. Esch, and Roberta R. Walker. Now, the reason that this is on my top 10 is because a lot of times we as writers have not had, a grammar class, have not had any type of English type, sentence structure class, and sentences can seem boring. So we tend to follow our subject, verb, object style of writing because this is what we were taught in school. This is the way English works. And so all the sentences start to sound the same, and it creates a boring just story. There's no musicality to the story. There's no interesting sentence structure. And so when I first started writing, I was like, I don't want all my sentences to sound the same, right? It just sounds boring, and I want to. I was actually told by a creative writing teacher, forget everything you learned in college, learn how to write sentence fragments, learn how to write the way people speak rather than these nice, complete sentences. So I liked this book because what it does is it shows different ways to structure your sentence so that it makes it more interesting. So I think she has like 20 sentence patterns, and she has examples, and she has exercises if you want to do it. So if anybody needs just a little help on just looking at sentences in a different way, what is a great way to structure your sentence? This is just a really interesting book, and I wouldn't probably, again, read it cover to cover, but I might read like, okay, my sentences are kind of boring in this scene. How can I change things around? How can I restructure these sentences so it sounds better? So nice book. I really like it. So again, I just wanted to share some of my favorite books or some of the books that have made an impact in my writing. If you're looking for books to buy for yourself or books to buy as gifts, I like these. I think these are helpful. They're very popular. Some of them, again, have been around many, many years and are still wonderful. So I hope this has helped. If it has, then share it with friends, share it with people who are looking for books to buy. I'm not making any money on whether you buy these books or not. I'm not even offering any links or anything. Buy them wherever you want to buy them, borrow them from the library. These are just great books that I think you would like. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you again next week.